I came home early from a girls' trip, snow falling hard over Vermont, hoping to surprise my husband. The house looked peaceful, golden light glowing from his office upstairs. Then I heard his voice through the half-open door. Marriage is a prison. If it weren't for her family's money, I'd be gone by now. He laughed. That laugh split my world in half. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just walked back out into the snow and sat in my car, mascara running, heart frozen. That's the night I learned something I'll never forget. Love doesn't always end with heartbreak. Sometimes it ends with strategy, and if he spent years building our marriage on lies, then I'd spend every day learning how to take it apart, one quiet move at a time. I still remember the first time I met Ethan. It was at a friend's party. Dim lights, the smell of cheap whiskey, and a guy in a wrinkled shirt with the kind of grin that made you want to listen. He seemed different from the men in my father's social circle. Genuine, grounded, unpolished. Maybe that's why I let my guard down. Back then, I was the daughter of Charles Blake, the kind of man people called comfortable wealthy. We weren't movie rich, but I never had to worry about rent or bills. Ethan, on the other hand, came from a working-class background. He had stories about struggling through college, about fixing cars and waiting tables to get by. That humility felt refreshing. 3 years into our marriage, everyone thought we were perfect. At our vow renewal ceremony last month, Ethan cried as he read his vows. My mother teared up. My father called him the son he never had. I believed every word Ethan said because I wanted to. He was charming, funny, self-deprecating in a way that made people adore him. He'd text me silly selfies when I traveled for work. Captions like, "Wish you were here, babe." He cooked breakfast on Sundays, brought me coffee in bed, and called me his lucky charm. But there were cracks I didn't want to see. Ethan always hesitated when it came to money. He'd insist on paying for dinner, but only if it was cheap. When I offered to help pay off his student loans, he resisted until I practically forced him. He'd talk about big dreams, but never quite chase them. Not until my father offered to introduce him to a few people, we slipped into routine. I worked on family projects. He stayed busy with his business plans. We hosted small dinners, posted smiling photos, played the part of a happy couple so convincingly that even I forgot we were acting. But deep down, something felt off, like living in a house where one picture frame is slightly crooked and you can't stop noticing it. I ignored it, because love, as I used to believe, could fix anything. Then came that night, when I came home early with nachos and beer, ready to surprise him. And instead found out I'd been living inside his script. He called our marriage a prison. And me, just a paycheck with a pulse. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just went still. Because in that moment, something colder than heartbreak woke up inside me, the kind of clarity that only comes to people who finally stop denying the truth. He built this life on lies. Fine. Then I'd learned to destroy it on my own terms. After that night, nothing really changed, and at least not for Ethan. He still kissed my forehead every morning, still made coffee, still played the role of the devoted husband so perfectly that it almost felt like a bad joke. But for me, everything had shifted. I no longer saw him as my husband. He was my subject. And I was the observer. I started noticing patterns. Late nights that didn't add up. Withdrawals from our joint account. Small enough to avoid attention, but steady enough to form a trail. $150 here, $200 there. Always just under the limit that required a conversation. I didn't ask. I documented. I started a folder on my laptop called Vermont Snow. Inside, screenshots of bank statements, timestamps, notes on his excuses. The same calm he used to manipulate me, I now used against him. Ethan had this way of diffusing tension, touching my hand saying, "We're okay, right?" Like it was a spell. And for years it worked. But now, every time he said it, it only confirmed one thing. He was terrified of being found out, so I began to test him. I accidentally left a browser tab open showing my private savings account, the one he didn't know existed. I mentioned casually that my father was reconsidering some business investments due to economic concerns. And every single time, Ethan's mask cracked just a little more. He didn't ask if my father was okay. He asked if the company was still stable, if our finances were safe, if he should prepare a backup plan. That's when I knew. Love never truly blinded me. I had just refused to see, so I adapted. I became quieter. Stayed out later. I let him feel what I'd been feeling all along. That suffocating uncertainty. It worked. He started to unravel. Calls, texts. Are you okay? You've been distant. Did I do something? I'd reply hours later. Just busy. That night. He grabbed my hands and whispered, I'm scared I'm losing you. I smiled. Calm and sweet. Don't worry, Ethan. We're okay. The irony nearly made me laugh. He didn't realize I'd just used his favorite lie against him, and that was the first victory in my quiet little war. It's strange how truth doesn't scream. It whispers. Small, forgettable details begin to align, like dust catching light. The first real break came one evening when Ethan went to the gym. I was putting away laundry when I noticed the drawer of his nightstand slightly ajar. I shouldn't have opened it, but I did. Under a box of cufflinks, I found a cheap burner phone. He'd scribbled the passcode on the back. Sloppy, overconfident. The arrogance of a man who thinks no one will ever look. It had one contact. D. The messages made my hands shake. Dozens of them. References to the plan, staying the course, 2 more years. Talks about money, withdrawals, lies. It wasn't just an affair. It was a conspiracy. I took photos of everything, then put it back exactly as I found it. That's when I realized I wasn't gathering evidence for revenge. I was gathering proof of who I'd become. A woman reclaiming control. I combed through our finances, printing bank statements, marking each transaction in red ink. The pattern was clear. Withdrawals before every trip to his hometown, never accounted for, never explained. Then I started noticing behavioral shifts, a tightening jaw when I mentioned my private account, a flicker of panic when I said lawyer in casual conversation. I began my own kind of psychological warfare. Leaving tabs open, making phone calls in private, coming home later, rearranging his things just slightly so he'd know I'd been there. I wasn't trying to hurt him. Not yet. I just wanted him to feel the ground beneath him begin to move. Soon he started to lose it. I'd catch him staring at me from across the room, eyes scanning for clues. One night I found him scrolling through my iPad search history. I had intentionally left searches like signs your husband is cheating and separate bank accounts in marriage. When he looked up, flustered, I said sweetly, "Dinner's almost ready." It was stir-fry. He said he loved lasagna. That's when I realized I didn't even hate him anymore. I was simply watching a man slowly choke on his own lies. Each lie he told became a thread in the web he was weaving, and I was just patiently waiting for him to get tangled in it. Once I had enough evidence, the fear vanished. The heartbreak turned into something sharper, a kind of cold precision that only people who've been truly betrayed can understand. I knew better than to confront Ethan outright. Men like him twist words until you start doubting your own memory. No, I wasn't going to attack. I was going to let him destroy himself, slowly, quietly, beautifully. I began to shift the rhythm of our life together. I stayed out later, answered texts slower, and kept my phone glued to me like I had secrets of my own. I could feel his eyes on me every time I picked it up. That was the point. One night, I came home after meeting Maya for coffee. Ethan was sitting on the couch, pretending to scroll through his phone. When I passed behind him, I caught a glimpse of his screen, a message from D. Still going according to plan? He locked it immediately, too fast, too guilty. Just an old friend checking in, he said, forcing a smile. Yeah, I replied softly. Some friends really know when to show up. He didn't respond, but I could see the tension coil in his shoulders. That's when I knew he'd spend the whole night wondering what I knew, and that uncertainty would eat him alive. A few days later, Ethan suggested we take a weekend trip, just the two of us. He wanted to fix things, he said. I almost laughed. Instead, I suggested we go somewhere quieter, my family's cabin by the lake. No Wi-Fi, no phone signal. Just snow and silence, he hesitated. Then agreed. The cabin was surrounded by pines, the lake half frozen under a blanket of white. Ethan pretended to relax, but I could feel his nerves humming beneath every breath. Every few hours, he'd walk outside, holding his phone up toward the sky, hoping for a signal. That's when I heard it. I had stepped out to get more firewood when his voice cut through the cold air. Low, urgent, scared. I'm working on it, okay? She's about to move some money from her private account. Once it's done, I'll tell you. Just 2 more months. I didn't hear what Dee said in response. I didn't need to. The message was enough. I stood there, the woodpile biting into my arms, the snow seeping into my boots. My breath came out in clouds, calm, measured. Inside, something in me clicked into place. He wasn't just cheating. He was plotting. I turned back toward the cabin, lit the fireplace, poured 2 mugs of cocoa, and waited. When he came in, cheeks red from the cold, I smiled and handed him a mug. "You must be freezing," I said. "Here, I made this for you." He smiled back, grateful, unsuspecting, and for a second I almost pitied him. Almost. That night, while he slept, I began writing. Not in a diary, in a document labeled Vermont Snow. Every withdrawal, every phone call, every time he mentioned investment opportunities, I recorded everything, even his tone, his timing, his lies. I backed it all up, sent a copy to Maya, and one to a private cloud under a fake name. If anything happened to me, someone would know. Over the next few days, I noticed subtle shifts. Ethan started following me around the house, checking my phone when he thought I wasn't looking. Once, when I came home from a grocery run, I saw my jewelry box slightly open. Fingerprints on the lid. I didn't say a word. Instead, I moved a few things around the next day, switched drawers, changed the passwords on small accounts. I wanted him to feel the paranoia, to realize bit by bit that control was slipping away. That's when it hit me. I wasn't angry anymore. I was curious. Watching him unravel was like studying an animal caught in its own trap. Fascinating and tragic. On our 3rd night at the cabin, Ethan broke the silence. "Maybe we should visit your parents soon," he said, voice trembling. "I miss them." I sipped my cocoa and stared into the fire. "That's a great idea," I said quietly. "Let's do that this weekend." He smiled, relieved. Naive, having no idea that dinner would be the stage where his entire performance finally collapsed. The night of the dinner, Vermont was wrapped in snow and silence. The kind that muffles everything, even your heartbeat. As we drove up the long road to my parents' house, the windows glowed gold against the dark woods. To anyone else, it looked warm, welcoming. But I knew better. That house wasn't hosting a family dinner. It was hosting an execution. Ethan sat beside me, fingers tapping on his knee, pretending to be calm. He looked perfect. Crisp shirt, cologne just strong enough to impress. I watched him in the reflection of the window, the man who once promised me forever, now rehearsing his next lie. My mother opened the door before we even rang. "Claire, sweetheart," she exclaimed, hugging me tight. Then, with that gentle warmth she always saved for guests, she smiled at Ethan. "Ethan, it's been too long. How's work?" He grinned, the same rehearsed grin he'd used on my father the first day they met. "Busy as always, but I've missed everyone." He knew exactly how to charm them. Throughout dinner, he laughed at my father's stories, complimented my mother's cooking, even helped my sister fix her phone. If I hadn't known what he was, I might have fallen for it all over again, but I did know, and that made every smile feel like poison. My father poured him a glass of wine, his tone casual, too casual. "So, Ethan, I heard you're looking into some properties near the lake. That true?" Ethan's hand froze mid-air before he chuckled. "Oh, just exploring options. Nothing serious yet?" My father said, nodding. "Well, that area's skyrocketing. Prices jumped 20% this year alone." For a split second, Ethan's mask slipped. His eyes flickered with something greedy, calculating. Then he quickly smiled again. "Really? That's interesting. That was all I needed." He took the bait exactly as planned. After dinner, I excused myself, saying I wanted to find an old photo album upstairs. In reality, I went to my room, dialed Maya, and gave her the signal. Within minutes, she sent my father an email labeled Vermont Snow. When I returned, the room was quiet. My father was holding his iPad, face hardening as he scrolled. My mother sat rigid, her wine untouched. Ethan was smiling nervously, glancing between them, clueless. My father looked up. "Son," he said evenly, "is there anything you want to explain?" Ethan blinked. "I'm sorry." My father turned the iPad toward him. On the screen were screenshots of text messages, the ones I'd saved from his burner phone. "Stick to the plan. Once she moves the money, we're in the clear. 2 months left. The sender, D." The color drained from Ethan's face. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. My mother set her glass down. Her voice trembled, but her words were sharp as glass. "You could have asked for help, Ethan. But you chose deceit. You made our daughter believe love was stronger than greed. He turned to me, desperate, voice cracking. Claire, listen, please, I can explain. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man who'd built his entire life on manipulation, now cornered, terrified. No, Ethan, I said quietly. You've explained enough. I'm just done listening. My father stood, reaching into his briefcase. He placed a stack of papers on the table. This is a preliminary divorce agreement. You have 24 hours to sign and vacate the property. My lawyer will handle the rest. Ethan's composure broke. His eyes filled with tears, not of remorse, but of loss. The kind of panic only people who've just realized the game is over can feel. He reached for me again, voice trembling. You don't understand. I did this for us? I stepped back. No. You did it for you. I walked past him and opened the door. Outside, snow fell thick and heavy, blanketing the porch in silence. You once called this marriage a prison, I said softly. So consider this your freedom. He didn't move. My father did, escorting him out without another word. As his figure disappeared into the storm, my mother touched my shoulder. You did the right thing, she whispered. But I didn't feel righteous. I didn't feel victorious. I felt empty, like someone who had just buried a version of herself she'd loved too much. When the door finally shut, I looked at the untouched cocoa cup I'd brought from the cabin, still sitting on the counter, cold and forgotten. That's when I realized the real betrayal wasn't what Ethan did. It was how much of myself I gave to someone who never deserved it. The night Ethan left, the house felt unnaturally quiet. No footsteps. No low hum of his voice drifting through the rooms. Just the soft ticking of the clock. Slow, deliberate, hollow. I spent the next morning cleaning, packing away the remnants of our life together. A shirt, a watch, a photo from our anniversary. I didn't cry when I touched them. I didn't even sigh. I just placed each one into a box and sealed it shut, labeling it in black ink. Finished. For days, I woke up startled, half expecting to find him beside me. My body was still programmed for a life that no longer existed. Each morning, I whispered to myself, "You're free now." But freedom, I realized, doesn't feel like liberation. It feels like standing in an empty room after the music stops. Eventually, I moved into a small apartment in Burlington, a quiet place overlooking Lake Champlain. The air smelled like pine and frost. Every morning, I brewed coffee and opened the windows, letting the cold wind sting my skin until I remembered I was still alive. I started writing everything down. Not just what happened, but what it meant. The way people like Ethan operate. How charm becomes camouflage. How love, in the wrong hands, becomes a weapon. My mother called one evening and said softly, "You won." But I didn't feel like I'd won anything. Survival isn't victory. It's just proof you made it through. And maybe that's enough. One afternoon, weeks later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "I hope you're happy. You ruined everything?" He wasn't perfect, but he loved you in his way. It was signed simply, D, so she was real. The ghost in our marriage now had a name, a voice, and enough anger to reach out. I didn't reply. 2 days later, another message came, this time an email. Attached were screenshots, Ethan and her laughing in some cheap motel mirror. Texts about our plan, about how once the money moves, we're free. She ended the email with, "He's with me now." Guess that's what you wanted. I typed a single line in response. Eventually, you'll learn. He never loved anyone who didn't come with interest. And I hit send. That was the last I ever heard from her. Months passed. Through mutual friends, I learned Ethan had started dating again, the daughter of a business owner in New Hampshire. It made me laugh. Some men don't change. They just find new stages to perform on. Sometimes I still dream about that night at the cabin, the sound of his voice whispering lies into the cold. But in those dreams now, I don't cry. I just watch myself standing in the snow, calm and silent, finally understanding that silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. It's survival. Spring came slowly to Vermont. The snow melted, and for the first time in months, sunlight spilled through my window. I walked down to the lake one morning. The water was clear enough to see the stones beneath. My reflection shimmered on the surface, familiar yet different. The same face, but the eyes carried peace instead of fear. My father's words echoed in my mind. Forgiveness isn't about who deserves it, Claire. It's about who deserves peace, I smiled. I finally understood. Ethan got what he wanted, freedom. And I got what he could never touch, dignity. A friend once asked, "Would you ever fall in love again?" I thought about it for a long moment and said, yes. But this time I'll love myself first. As I turned to leave, the lake rippled with light. The breeze brushed my hair, soft and weightless. For the first time, the silence around me didn't hurt. It felt like music. Because it wasn't emptiness anymore, it was freedom.